Hi, I'm Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, last week I shared with you how you can set a savings goal that you're actually going to hopefully stick to and keep you motivated throughout the year. But how are you actually going to find that money? So this week in this video, I want to share with you the different hacks, the different tricks you can use to make sure that money does actually reach your bank account. So if you want to make sure that you achieve your savings goal, you really need to get into the habit of putting your money into savings. It's all well and good saying you get to the end of the month, you see what you've got left, and that's what your savings are. But chances are that's far, far less than you possibly could if you follow a few of these simple tips and tricks. Now, the first thing to do, the most important thing to do, I think, is to have your savings in a completely separate account. Okay, if you have it meddled up, with your normal account, so it's just one account for day-to-day spending and savings, you won't know what you've got. You'll lose track very easily, and the chances are you'll eat into it, okay, as well, just as you would if you wait to the end of the month. If it's in there, you won't really know how much you've got. So have a separate savings account, okay? Really important that savings account is, getting the best return it possibly can. Ideally, you want this to be beating the rate of inflation. The rate of inflation is essentially how much goods have got more expensive over the last 12 months, and you get a new rate every single month. Now, over the last sort of 6 months or so, it's gone between sort of 1.5 and 2%, something around that. It's very difficult to get interest that is higher than that. But if you can, it basically means your interest is making more money. Anything less than that, then you're kind of losing out in real terms. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have an account of less than that if that's all you can get, but it's just to sort of say that it is hard to get. Now, some of the places you can look for that are outside the normal places you think about, yeah? It's not in an ISA, it's not in just the bank's own little savings account. It could well be in a completely new bank account, which you can have as a separate account to your normal day-to-day spending. So a couple of ones to look out to right now. Nationwide gives you 5% for the first year on up to 2.5 grand with its Flex Direct account, while TSB will give you 3% on the first 1.5 grand that you keep in their accounts, and that is ongoing. Of course, they can change these offers at any time. It could go up, could go down, it could be scrapped completely. But they're good ones to start with right now. If you are in a relationship, if you're married, you're a partner, could even be actually with a family member if you're saving together. You can also have a joint account which can increase how much you can get, particularly with TSB. It means you could get that 3% on 3 accounts between you rather than just the 2. So that's a nice little hack just to make your money, your savings work harder for you, help you reach that goal a little bit faster. Now, that's all very well if you've got a lump of cash or if you put them into it. But if you are saving on a regular basis, so every single month, then you should be looking at something called a regular saver, sometimes called a monthly saver. And these have some inflation beating rates. Not amazing, but at the moment around 2.75%. Saying that 6 months ago they were around 5%, which shows how much that's changed. But these are quite good because what you do is you can pay in normally between £250 and £300 every month. That's the most you can pay in. Sometimes they let you go a little bit more than that, and you pay that money in, and you pay it in again the next month. Sometimes you can skip a month if you want to, but it's good if you do every single month. Get into that habit of doing it. You don't get the interest until the 12 months are up. So I think that's really good because it means that temptation to sort of dip into your savings is reduced, because if you do take money out of that regular savings account, you're going to lose some of that interest. So that's a really, really good one to think about. You could also, if you don't need to access the cash right away and you've got some of it sort of stored up, again, after you've looked at those high paying current account, after you've looked at those regular savers, maybe you want to look at a fixed rate savings account for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Again, that money is locked away. If you withdraw it, you can lose the interest, or there's penalties on the interest. So again, kind of helps you prioritize that money. Do you really want, what are you saving it for? If it's harder to get access to it, harder to actually get that money out, then you're less likely to spend it and more likely to keep saving into it and achieve that goal. Now, you can even take a kind of more lo-fi approach to that idea of keeping your money, make it difficult to reach. If your money is only accessible through an app or online banking, well then don't download the app for this separate account. Things like that, all those sort of things that makes it difficult for you to kind of quickly transfer that money. But it is important that you do put it somewhere like a savings account, and it does earn some interest. Don't just leave it in a box in your bedroom, okay? Because it's you much greater protection if you keep your money elsewhere. So once you've got this separate account set up and you're moving your money there, right, what you need to do is put the cash in, don't you? Okay, it's all very well having that money. Where's that money going to come from? Well, the best thing you can do, one of the most important things you can do, is something called paying yourself first. You might have heard this term bandied around in terms of savings. Now the idea is when you get your paycheck, when your salary gets paid into your current account, you work out what your essentials are, your mortgage, your rent, what you're going to need for travel and food throughout the month, those essential payments. And then anything you've got less, you're essentially doing a simple budget. Anything you've got left, you can work out how much you can afford to save from that. And then pay yourself, transfer that money into that separate account then just after payday. Because then it simply can't get eaten up as the month goes along. The sooner you pay it, the better. Now, I would leave this a couple of days because payday often, if it falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, you might get delayed until the Monday. Obviously, if you do get paid early, then you can do what you need to do. But it's always worth bearing that in mind that you might have a bit of a delay in that transaction coming through. And then set up a standing order. You're automating this movement of money over. You're not having to remember. That money will absolutely, just after payday, get put into your savings. Already it's a savings habit without you even having to do much. You're doing something right at the beginning of the year. When you start doing this, when you start trying to achieve your goal, you're moving that money across. Okay, so that's a really, really simple thing to do. And your money will very, very quickly add up in this separate savings pot. You might be thinking even so, once you've, there's not a huge amount of cash when you look at your budget. So you might find that you want to increase how much you put in there by sort of delving in a little bit more to your spending habits. Have a look at your standing orders and your direct debits. Are there any things that you don't use, that you don't need? Have a look at your bank statements and see if you're spending a huge amount of money on taxis. Can you actually reduce the number of taxis you have and get the bus instead or walk instead, things like that. There are all these simple things you can do to make sure you've got more in your account that can go towards your savings pot. And again, similarly, when you're shopping out there, do the things that I'm always talking about, those little tips and those tricks that mean you get more for your money. You're spending less on stuff. You'll be able to save a little bit of cash. Again, all that extra money that you can keep in your account means there's more money for you to save in your separate pot. But there are also some things you can do to kind of help keep saving as you go along on top of that initial sum. It's great to have that monthly sum that you put in there, and that should be your priority, but you can also do things to kind of add to that as well. Now, you might have seen these things called savings challenges. They're quite popular, particularly in January. Lots of articles about how you can do this over a year, we can do that over a year. I'm not always a fan of these things. I think they're often a bit fiddly and not always very realistic, but they could possibly work for you. There's a very popular one called the 52-week savings challenge. The idea is on week 1, when you start your savings, you put away £1. In week 2, £2, week 3, £3, and so on until week 52, you're putting away 52 quid. Now, if you start that in January, I think it's quite flawed because you're going to end up putting away the most amount of money in one of the most expensive months of the year. Around 200 quid, more than 200 quid will be put away in December when funds are going to be tight anyway. There's a reverse 52-week challenge where you do it the other way around, where you start putting that money, the big amounts of money, so 52 quid on the first week of January and so on. But it's the same problem. If funds were tight in December, they're going to be tight in January as well. But you could do it any other time of the year. You could start it in the summer, in which case you kind of the most amount of money is going then. So it's worth thinking about that, and there are all sorts of trackers online, things you can print out to help you work out what you're doing. There is a one which is kind of, if you think, there's absolutely no way, even any month, you're going to be able to save 52 quid 1 year, 1 week, 51, 50, 49 pounds, in that end month is massively impossible. There's also a 1p savings challenge, which might be more realistic, and it might be a nice way to get you into thinking about saving and putting that money aside. With this 1p savings challenge, you put away 1 pence on day 1, 2 pence on day 2, and so on until the end of the year. You pay £3.65 on a normal year. This year it's a leap year, so the 31st of December it would be £3.66, and you can make a decent amount of cash doing that over the year. It's around sort of 650 quid, a bit more than that actually, put away in a year, with just essentially pennies and pounds every single day, which makes it kind of a bit more kind of, you think, well, you could find a penny every day. You probably can find £3 if you're smart about it every single day. Again, issues with that in terms of putting the most money away at the most expensive time of the year. But again, you can start this any time of the year and you can track it through any time with these printouts. I think it's a bit of a faff. You're having to work out, hang on, what day is it here in the year? How much do I need to have? But there is, if you have an account with the bank Monzo, there is a lovely little trick that makes this a lot easier. So basically, if you don't know Monzo, it is an app-only current account. There are no branches, there's no phone line support. Basically, you operate everything through your phone. And then what you do, you can apply for it very simply. Lots of budgeting features. People love this. It's a very, very popular account. But what you can do is you can link it up with some software called IFTTT, which stands for if this, then that. And I won't explain exactly how it works, but basically what it does is you just enter all the information. There's a guide on the Monzo website, which I'll link to in the show notes. And it will automatically move when you start it 1p on the first day, 2p on the second day, and so on, from your existing, your main Monzo account into one of its separate savings pots. So you can let that money slowly sort of build up in the background without you having to do anything. And that automation, I think, is what makes this something that's actually quite possibly something you might want to give it a go. And there are other ways you can automate your savings. Something that I really like the idea of is something called roundups. Now, Monzo does this, Starling, which is similar to Monzo, offers it, but so do some of the big banks. Halifax, Lloyds, TSB, they offer this feature. Now, you have to activate this, you have to sign up for this with those banks. But if you do, every time you make a transaction, they will round up the spare change, essentially, to the nearest quid. So let's say you bought a coffee for £2.30. They will round it up to £3. And what they'll do with that 70p, that extra 70 pence, is they'll move that into a savings pot for you. And they will do this on every single transaction you make. So if you use your debit card a lot, you can quickly see how those little pennies will quickly become pounds, tens of pounds. Over a year, you could well be looking at a couple of £100. Obviously, it does depend what kind of things you are buying and how much money you're spending. Similarly with automation, something I really, really like is this sort of breed of apps which use artificial intelligence to analyze your current account and work out where you can afford to save money. So this is almost sort of taking away some of the effort from doing it yourself earlier on, where looking at your budget, seeing where you've got a bit of cash. I still would do that because you will spot things that that you don't need to be spending money on. But what's great about these apps, Chip, Plum and Cleo, they're the three main ones that do this, is you connect them to your current account. So they look at your spend and they analyze how much you've got. And then they will give you a little notification, say, look, we think this week you can afford to save £8, £20, whatever it might be. Are you happy with this? You can say yes or no. As long as you're happy with it, that money then again gets moved into a separate pot. And this happens, you can set the frequency of it, you can increase how often the saves happen, you can pause it so that no saves happen. But it's a really lovely way, again, of getting some extra cash going into your pot, really, really boosting what you've got. Personally, I would do a combination of all these things. So I would absolutely set up that standing order based on, having a look at my own sort of spending habits, my own budget, work out how much I can afford to save every single month and have that money move after payday. So I know there is a set amount that's going to build up, help me achieve that goal, okay? Then I would also be looking at some of these automations. Now, whether that is the 1p challenge with Monzo, whether it is the roundup with my bank, whether it's one of these artificial intelligence savings apps, I would do maybe a couple of those on top to keep that savings going on as well. So those combined should hopefully build a nice little pot. But then there's a final thing I would do to really, really boost that savings pot, is when I do get to the end of the month, if there is anything left, and if you've been pretty sharp with your budgeting and if you've been using these apps to increase how much goes on, it might not be much. But when I get to the end of the month as well, before payday, I would have a look again and I would work out what I've got left. Anything that's left in there before payday, again, transfer that again into your separate savings account because you've not spent it, so therefore you don't need it for the next month. Move it across. Again, all these things combined really, really, really will help you achieve that savings goal so much faster than you possibly intended, but it also means you've actually got a realistic chance of doing it. So I will link to everything I've spoken about in the notes below this video. Please do comment, like, share, let me know what you think, let me know what you're saving for. Do subscribe to this channel as well if you don't want to miss any of the future videos. A little notification bell will let you know when the latest ones are released. Until next time, cheers.